Somebody explain Planetary to me in a way that actually uses logic?
Yes, I can. First of all, you don't understand attack potency. Or at least, that's what all these videos circulating on TikTok and YT are telling me. For example, like this one here, where I'm going to play a short clip.
All I gotta do is say, hey, show Naruto destroying a planet.
And we still have yet to see this. Still have yet to see any sort of explanation, a video, a manga panel. That is it.
And there are dozens upon dozens like this video. With some help, I decided to explain this in excruciating detail on how AP works. So grab some popcorn, get your tissues, and your pencils ready, because OverGoat's class is in session. And if you want to pass this class, you gotta drop a sub or a follow and smash that like button like it's your fucking bitch. Let's get into this. Let's delve into how strong characters are in any given story. Pretty much the biggest misconception that has happened since the beginning of VSPW, started its tiering system, and any tiering system afterwards, and even in current power scaling in general, is that people begin to confuse the names of the strengths of levels with real things. This comes from people hearing the name of a tier and attributing that to what the tier means. But they're just about how much energy is needed to accomplish something and not the actual destruction of said item. So in a tiering system, what is actually being calculated is the amount of kinetic energy, joules, tons of TNT, etc. needed to match the metric that they set in place. For example, fragmenting an island 1 kilometer deep and across in its entire landmass to achieve a certain level like we call island level. Somebody who created their tiering system came up with that metric. That for it to be considered island level. Fragmentize an island of a certain size. In this case, 1 kilometer deep. Another tiering system could have a completely different metric, which is why we cannot go off the names to determine what is required to be this tier. It's all about matching that energy output needed for this specific level in a tiering system. So while the name isn't important, the amount of energy needed to be released is. So what we're not actually talking about is the literal destruction of the name of the tier. In this example, island level. To quote VSBW, tiers do not necessarily correspond to the destruction of their namesake in any meaningful fashion. This is because the bare minimum requirements for these tiers are arbitrary values. Now we're going to talk about DC and their relevance to this conversation. What's being confused here is that DC, in fights between characters, the range of the attack usually doesn't matter. It's the amount of kinetic energy required to perform a destructive feat. While there may be exceptions, the vast majority of the time, range, in other words DC, is irrelevant. This is why it's so important to distinguish between attack potency and destructive capacity. The actual attack range, such as destroying an entire planet, would be considered DC. However, AP is way more relevant because of the metrics we've already talked about. For example, if 2 characters destroy the same planet, but one vaporizes it in the same time frame that another character fragments it, the AP would not be the same, given that the character who vaporized it would have a much more impressive feat because the energy value is a lot higher. I'm going to go ahead and show you guys some information about that right here. Boom, boom. And now we're going to go ahead and address the misconceptions about relativity. We're going to use Kaguya for an example. You will constantly hear about how Naruto and Sasuke don't scale to Kaguya because they jumped her, but this is a huge misconception. Now, the debunk specifically for Kaguya about them being teamed up, their physical stats don't magically increase just because they're not fighting individually. To simply put it, imagine this scenario. You clone yourself and have 10 clones, all with equal strength, durability, speed, skills, etc. However, you give yourself infinite regeneration along with limitless stamina and endurance. While the clones do not have these abilities, and in this case, even though the stats of the clones are equal to you, it wouldn't matter how many of them there are if they cannot overcome your immortality in this case. Their actual stats become irrelevant. They will, in fact, eventually lose the battle since they cannot overcome your immortality. This is why they need to figure out a way to defeat you without, quote-unquote, unaliving you. In the context of the story of Naruto Sasuke v Kaguya, they couldn't defeat her through conventional means due to said immortality. This is why they had to resort to using a sealing jutsu given to them by the Sage of Six Paths to seal Kaguya, even though their stats were relative and in some parts actually surpassing them, as we see here. Naruto being able to absolutely violate Kaguya, Sakura being able to violate Kaguya, and of course Kakashi the Goat violating Kaguya. And we've also got Naruto 1v wanting her in this dimension here. The only one that really didn't do anything, of course, is Sasuke the cheerleader. But we do have him fighting Naruto directly after this with casual relativity, so that argument doesn't even work either. Even though, let's be honest, Sakura was the GOAT in that fight. You can't fight me on this, fuck you, bitch. That was not in the script, but I'm keeping it in. Alright, let's continue. So finally, of course, they had to quote-unquote jump her. Does not refute or debunk anything, as there were other factors like her immortality that made it a lot more difficult, and it really not a possible win con in the normal sense. Now that we have absolutely violated the Kaguya debunk argument that everyone likes to use, we are now going to address the moon level quote-unquote debunk for Naruto as well. Moving on to the actual planetary scaling, we don't even need to use Kaguya to create anything. We have a feat from Toneri in which he moves the moon, and here's the calc for that, of course. To address this debunk that says the moon feat doesn't matter because it's hollow. The fact that the moon might be hollow doesn't matter much. It has to be a certain size and mass to stay in place, not get pulled in and ripped apart by tidal forces, and then come crashing down to the planet. In the calc on screen, even if we account for 50% hollowness, which isn't possible due to the Roche limit, but I'm going Steelman as much as possible, it would still come out to around the planetary ranges. Naruto goes on to literally one-shot this character named Toneri who did this feat. Now you might say, why does Toneri scale to that? It's a hacks. Now, while yes, in Naruto, generally you can make your chakra scale above your physicals by adding things such as nature release, shape transformation, and any feat done with raw chakra you would scale to, of course. And that is because in Naruto, you use chakra for everything, including the amplification of your physicals. So to say that Toneri does not scale to this is to say he doesn't scale to his raw internal chakra, which of course is inherently fallacious, as chakra is made up of physical energy and spiritual energy, and there's no reason to say that they do not scale to this. So of course, this is also consistent with multiple multi-continental to small planetary feats prior to this, as shown here. Also, to those that say that physics does not apply in anime, that is incorrect. You need some basis in fiction to base logic on. Without reality, we cannot comprehend anything. For example, we can't even say that Naruto is capable of sight because this is inherently reliant on the existence of photons, or that he is even capable of movement because it requires the concept of biology and multiple laws of physics. This is indisputable. Let me break it down even further. We can't even say that Naruto's hair is actually even yellow without basing it on reality. See how this doesn't work? And no, I'm not being intellectually dishonest here. You drawing an imaginary line in what we can and can't base off reality is inherently fallacious by nature. Clearly he's on a Earth-like planet, even if it is larger as shown here. There is also a clear concept of physics in Naruto, as such as gravity, which clearly exists. There are even other aspects of physics shown in this series, so to assert that you cannot apply physics in a certain context, you wouldn't need to actually provide evidence that that specific law of physics is contradicted in the world of Naruto, or we base it off of reality, plain and simple. So back onto the consistency of the scale, we've got multiple multi-continental to small planetary feats in the late war arc, as shown here. So in conclusion, if you still disagree that Naruto is planetary and that you still don't somehow understand AP, DC and their differences, hop in one of my lives, drop comments down below, and let's discuss. Because if I have to, I will go in even more detail and even more explicitly on how this is fucking ridiculous. Hope you enjoyed your popcorn, I hope you took notes, and I hope you smash that like and follow or sub button depending on what platform this is on. And you guys know I love you, I appreciate you, and I'm trying not to insult people's intelligence, but some of these videos, I swear, are testing my patience. Get me to 1K on YouTube and get me to 10K on TikTok. Thank you. Special thanks to Marv on TikTok, And DC Does Physics for his calcs on the Lounge Battle Wiki. You can always find him on TikTok and on YT. You guys should go ahead and drop him a follow as well. OverGoat, out.